It's a pretty cool video, isn't it? Let me tell you guys something. We have some really talented people in our church. A couple months ago, I texted somebody and said, hey, I want to do a series called Breakthrough. Can you make me a video? And Justin and Nicole, who run all of our behind-the-scenes technology stuff, I called them out by name because I want everybody to know that they did an incredible job. Yeah. Okay. So we're starting a brand new series today called Breakthrough, where we are talking about this idea of breaking through. And I believe with all my heart that in 2023, Jesus wants to set some people free. Free of sin, addiction, the things that are holding them back from experiencing the fullness of Jesus in their lives. I believe with all my heart that Jesus wants to do that this year, and maybe even in your life. See, Paul told us that we are to experience the fullness of Christ in our life, and I think there are many of us, maybe even many of us in this room, who are being robbed of that experience of the fullness of Christ. Jesus said it this way in Luke chapter 4, verse 18. He said, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim the good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim what? Freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the captives what? Free." And I believe that there are some people that are going to experience some freedom this year from things that they never thought they would have freedom from. Have you ever felt stuck at any point in your life? Like really stuck, like you couldn't get any further, like you tried and you would take 2 steps forward and then 5 steps back? Anybody ever experienced that before? Maybe spiritually, emotionally, physically, financially, relationally, you just feel like it's not working out. How many of you have ever been on something called a bungee run before? 3 people. Okay, well good. This is going to be a lesson for all of us then, except for those 3 people. So what you do is you get on this giant inflatable thing, and they strap a bungee rope cord around you, and they tell you to run as fast as you can to the very end of the inflatable thing. And when you get there and the bungee cord tightens up, guess what happens? It flings you straight back to where you started from. The very first time that I did this, I ended up with burns and bruises and cuts all over me. It can be that intense, or I was just that fast and got to the end that nobody else could get to, one or the other. But it worked out. And I feel like sometimes that's a picture of life. Like you want to get free. You want to break free from the things that are keeping you stuck and keeping you from experiencing the fullness of Christ in your life. But then you get drawn right back and you got cuts and bruises and scrapes for trying. And I feel like a lot of us do that and we try. I want to talk to you about a thing that I'm going to call the magnet problem. Everybody say the magnet problem. The magnet problem is when you want to break free and you want to get loose, but there's something always pulling you back. And it's always pulling you back to that thing which is going to be most easy, convenient, and familiar in your life. And we all experience this from time to time. Let me try to illustrate it just in case you need to understand what it means. So let's pretend that at the beginning of 2023 here, you decided that you were not honoring God with your physical body. And you said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start working out, getting in shape. I'm going to sleep better. I'm going to eat better. I'm just going to honor God with this part of my life better. I think a lot of people can relate to that this time of year. And so what are you going to do? Well, you're going to go and you're going to join a gym, right? And you're going to say, I'm going to go every day to this gym for the entire year because I'm paying for the membership, right? Then you're going to go home and you're going to throw all the junk food out of your refrigerator and out of your pantry. You're going to get rid of all the Pop-Tarts, right? All that stuff, and it's going to be gone. And then you're going to buy like turkey and chicken and kale and spinach and fruit and vegetables. And then you're going to get started on this, and you're going to get a week into it, and you're going to wake up on a Monday morning, and it's going to be 30 degrees outside. Your car is going to have a solid sheet of ice on the windshield. Let me ask you a question. What is more familiar, comfortable, and easy? Laying in that bed or getting up and going to the gym? Laying in the bed, because that's nice and comfortable, isn't it? Yeah, and what you're going to do is you're going to set that alarm, but you're going to hit the snooze button 7 times and drive your spouse crazy all morning, right? Yeah, and then let me ask you this question. What tastes better, ice cream or kale? If you said kale, you're a psychopath. Whoever that was back there. Ice cream, of course. And so what you're going to do is you're going to buy that package of spinach. You're going to leave it in your refrigerator for 2 weeks. It's going to grow moldy or whatever. You're going to throw it out. You're going to go buy another package of spinach that you can leave in your refrigerator for 2 weeks. We all do that from time to time. But you're always going to be drawn back to what is most comfortable, convenient, and easy for you. We all do this. We all experience this. So what are we to do about it? How are we going to overcome the magnet effect? You see, here's what I believe with all my heart. I believe that God wants to set you free from what is holding you back from experiencing a close relationship with Him. And so maybe you're here today and you would say, you know what, the reality is that I know what God has asked me to do. I know who He has designed me to be in relationship with Him. I know that spiritually in my life that I'm supposed to read God's Word and love God's Word. And I'm supposed to pray and even fast and make worship a priority, make His church. And He is my number one priority in life. But if I'm being honest, there's a gap between where I'm supposed to be, who God designed me to be, and where I currently am. Maybe you would say, I can't remember the last time I opened my Bible consistently. Maybe you would say, the only time I pray is when I'm in traffic and it's not to kill someone. Right? Maybe you would say, church, honestly, and God, like worshiping Him, it's a priority in my life-ish when there isn't something better to do. And honestly, I've never fasted, and I don't pray. Like, you would say there's a gap between where you are and where you need to be, and you want to break through that gap. Or maybe for you, it's relationally. You would say, you know, I know what God has called me to do in my family, the way that He's called me to love and forgive. And maybe even it's even beyond my family, like to my coworkers, neighbors, and friends, people that I know how I'm supposed to live in relationship with. But if I'm being honest, that's not the way that it works for me. Like this morning, I got up and my wife's alarm went off 7 times because she was supposed to go to the gym. And now I'm just mad at everything, right? That joke didn't go over well in first service either. I almost didn't do it. And maybe I'm frustrated all the time with the people around me, and it's become so popular to say I hate people, don't want to be around people, I'd rather just be around dogs or cats. Your people are also psychopaths. But listen, like I know that there's a gap between who I'm supposed to be and who I am. And I want to break through. Maybe for you it's financially, and you would say, look, the reality is that I don't trust, I know that I'm supposed to trust God with every part of my life, including what He has blessed me with. And I know that I'm supposed to not lean on my own understanding and trust Him completely and be generous. But if I'm being honest, I lean on my own understanding all the time. And I don't do it His way. I do it my way. And there's a gap between who I'm supposed to be and who I am. And I want more than anything for all of us to be able to break free this morning from that gap. Break through and be able to walk as closely with Jesus as He has designed us to walk with Him. And I want you to be able to experience the fullness of Christ. And I know that this kind of sounds like a self-help talk a little bit, but I promise you it's not. Because you can look through the Old Testament and the New Testament, and you see numerous examples of people who had a breakthrough moment where God came through in their life, did amazing things. People like Abraham and Moses and David. And then you get to the New Testament, you see people like the disciples and the Apostle Paul who had their life transformed and they had a breakthrough moment. And I want you to experience those kind of breakthrough moments in your life. And so what we're going to do is we're going to spend January, the rest of January, talking about what the anatomy of a breakthrough looks like. There are 4 things that you're going to want to make a regular part of your life if you want to experience a breakthrough. And then in February, we're going to get to some very specific things that maybe you need to experience a breakthrough in and how you might go about doing that. So today, let's start with this idea of the anatomy of a breakthrough. What does that look like and how are we supposed to do it? The first thing that you're going to need is passion. Everybody say passion. That means you've got to start really caring. You got to care. It has to be something that ignites a passion within you. And in order for us to maybe get a better idea of what that would look like, how that would work, I want us to look at a person from the Old Testament by the name of Nehemiah. If you have your Bible, I would encourage you to turn to the book of Nehemiah. We're not going to read it just yet. I'm going to set them up first. Good try. So let me tell you a little bit about Nehemiah. If you have your Bible, you can turn there. If not, it'll be up on the screen in a few minutes. And it's page 432 in my book, if you guys, if that helps you, I don't know. So Nehemiah wasn't a king. He wasn't a prophet. He wasn't a priest. He wasn't a warrior like so many other heroes from the Old Testament. He was actually a servant in a palace under the Persian reign. And let me tell you how he got there. At the very beginning, God created, when God made Israel a nation, he got with Abraham, and they had this covenant relationship that was going to be between God and his people. And he said, listen, if you will obey me and you will live for me and you will honor me, then I will bless you. But if you don't, there will be consequences for your actions. And so he set out some simple rules and laws that we made really complex, but they're really, the heart of those laws is two things. Number one, it's love God and honor him. Don't worship created things, worship God only. And then treat each other well, love each other, respect each other. Well, how long do you think Israel did those things really well?
3 seconds.
3 seconds is probably accurate. Very good. Not very long at all, and we don't do them very well at all either sometimes. But Israel rebelled against God. They were disobedient to his word, his laws, his commands, and so there were consequences for their actions. And so God said that there was going to be consequences, and what happened was around 580, 575 BC, there was a group of people, after Israel had had one evil king after another, there was a group of people called the Persians that came, the Babylonians that came over, and they attacked Jerusalem, and they did three things that were just absolutely awful for the nation of Israel. Number one is they destroyed the temple. Now, the temple was a place where even if they weren't worshiping God consistently, it was like a source of national pride. I mean, this thing was beautiful. People came from the world over just to come and see this place because it was amazing. And it was the place where they knew that God would meet with them. And they came in and they destroyed it. The second thing that they did was they destroyed the wall that surrounded Jerusalem. This was also a source of national pride because now people could just come in wherever they want. They could raid, they could loot, they could pillage, they could do all of those things. And so this was a horrific thing. And the third thing, maybe the worst, is that God allowed the Babylonians to take in exile the Israelites. They took the best and the brightest away from Israel, and they took them 1,000 miles away to what is modern-day Iran. And 140 years later. How many years? 140 years later. So that means Nehemiah was born in captivity. Now the Persian Empire, who runs things over there, he is now finding himself as a cupbearer in the house or the palace of King Artaxerxes. Who can tell me what a cupbearer does? I'll tell you what a cupbearer does. A cupbearer is someone who tastes the wine of the king before the king drinks it. Which you may think, if you like wine, that sounds like an awesome job. But the unfortunate thing is the reason that he did that is if anyone tried to assassinate the king with poison, the cupbearer would die first. So it's a great job until someone tries to assassinate the king, then you die. So Nehemiah finds himself as a servant in the palace, and he is about to find out some news that is going to greatly ignite a passion within him. It's going to stir something up within him that he cannot let go. He's about to hear about a gap, kind of like what we were just talking about, between where God had intended Israel to be in their relationship with him and where they actually were. Now, if you have your Bibles, Nehemiah chapter 1. Let's start with verse 1. We're actually going to read the entire chapter of Nehemiah, chapter 1. That's the only place we'll be today. It says this, the words of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah, in the month of Kislev in the 20th year. And just in case you're wondering, I did some research on that, and they think it would have been around November, December-ish, about the time that we start setting out our Christmas decorations. And by the way, how many of you still have Christmas decorations up? Okay, good. Quite a few. It's about time to start thinking about letting it go the whole year, right? You can just get ahead for next year. While I was in the citadel of Susa, Hanani, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some other men. And I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that had survived the exile and also about Jerusalem. So his brother was able to go back and forth apparently. And this is what they said to him. Verse 3, they said to me, those who survived the exile and are back in the province are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire. When I heard these things, I sat down and I wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. Do you sense the heartbreak, the passion that was ignited in Nehemiah's life in this moment? You see, Nehemiah had what we call a Popeye moment. Who can tell me what a Popeye moment is? It's not where you eat delicious fried chicken, although that sounds good too. No, Popeye was a sailor man. If you've never seen the cartoon, I would encourage you to go home today and YouTube it and watch you an episode of Popeye the Sailor Man. Popeye was a guy who had thick forearms, bigger than his legs, and he had a girlfriend named Olive Oyl. Now here's the fun part. He had an enemy named... Okay, this is fun. Let me tell you, there was almost a full-on fist fight in first service over this. Is it Bluto or is it Brutus? And we answered the question. The answer is both. Pre-1947, it was Bluto. Post-1947, it was Brutus. So the answer is both. Okay? And that just dates how old you think that dates how old you are if you thought it was Bluto. Okay. Anyway, he had this enemy, and the enemy would always take the girlfriend, Olive Oyl, and steal her away, and he would have to go try to get her back, and he would always have this moment in every episode where he would give his famous catchphrase, and his catchphrase is this: that's all I can stands, I can't stands no more. Come on, let's say it all together. 1, 2, 3. That's all I can stands, I can't stands no more. Yeah, and some of you even did it in a Popeye voice. That's great. In that moment, he said, I cannot stand for this anymore. And he would eat his spinach, and he would get strong, and he would win the day every single time. Now, what if in your life you had a Popeye moment? Remember all the things, the gaps between who you are and who God intended you to be, what it means to walk closely with Jesus. What if you decided, I've had all I can stand of this, and I can't stand no more. I'm done with it. I'm going to break through. I'm going to break through. I'm going to let Jesus set me free from the addiction, from the sin, from the whatever it is that's causing me to not be able to experience the fullness of Christ. And that's exactly what Nehemiah did. He had a breakthrough moment for him and the whole nation of Israel. They were able to break through to the other side and see some amazing things happen. And let me tell you what the passion in Nehemiah's life did. And you may have to experience the exact same thing in your life if you want to have a breakthrough moment. The number one thing is this: you might have to sit down and cry. Because that's exactly what Nehemiah did. The moment he heard about the gap between who God called Israel to be and where they were, he sat down and he cried. And listen, it wasn't just like a tear running down his cheek. He cried and mourned for days. So think full-on ugly cry. Right? If you're wearing makeup, it's everywhere, snot flinging, like full-on ugly cry here. Because he was so broken. He was so broken over what had happened that he couldn't just sit there. And so he began to mourn and cry over what is going on in your life, the place that you want to break through. The first thing that may have to happen for you to experience a breakthrough is you may have to sit down and be brokenhearted over where you are versus where God has called you to be. And if you haven't experienced that yet, maybe today is the day that you can experience that. Number 2, you may have to kneel down and pray. Because that's the second thing that Nehemiah did. He was broken, and then he began to pray. And it said that he prayed for days about, God, will you help us? God, we need your strength. His first response, not his last resort, was prayer in the moment that he needed God the most. And let me tell you what he prayed. The rest of chapter 1 is this incredible prayer from Nehemiah, and we can gain so much from this prayer. Check this out. This is what he said. Then I said, Lord, the God of heaven, the great and awesome God, who keeps his covenant of love with those who love him and keep his commandments. Let your ear be attentive and your eyes open to hear the prayer your servant is praying before you day and night for your servants, the people of Israel. I confess the sins we Israelites, including myself and my father's family, have committed against you. We have acted very wickedly towards you. We have not obeyed the commandments, decrees, and laws that you gave your servant Moses. Remember the instruction you gave your servant Moses, saying, if you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the nations. But if you return to me and obey my commands, then even if your exiled people are at the farthest horizon, I will gather them from there and bring them to the place I have chosen as a dwelling for my name. They are your servants and your people, whom you redeemed by your great strength and your mighty hand. Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of this your servant and to the prayer of your servants who delight in revering your name. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man. This man was the king, by the way. I was cupbearer to the king. Had to throw that in there to let you know what he did. His prayer is so amazing. He didn't say, God, how did you do this to us? God, why did you make this happen? His prayer was, God, I am broken. Forgive us. Forgive me and give me strength to move forward. What if you prayed like that? What if your first resort, your first priority, your first reaction, instead of saying, God, what is this? Oh, I guess I'll pray. What if your first action was to pray, God, forgive me for this gap that exists between who I am and who you've designed me to be. And God, give me strength to move forward. The second thing that you may need to do is to kneel down and pray. And the third thing that you're going to need to do is this. You will need to stand up. You will need to stand up and act. You will have to stand up and act. Nehemiah didn't just cry over this. And he didn't just have a prayer service over this. Those things would have been great, but he said, I'm going to do something about it. And if you want to go and read all of chapter 2, you can. But basically what he does is he goes before the king. And you don't go before the king when you're the servant of the king and ask the king for favors. That's just not something that you do. And you don't spend a lot of time being sad and frowning around the king, or he has you thrown out of a window of the palace and nobody asks any questions. But he showed up sad the next day in front of the king. And the king said, why are you sad? And he said, how can I not be sad when my city, the city of my ancestors, is in disgrace and trouble? I've got to go do something. And so he starts buttering up the king. He's like, Lord King, may you live forever. Have you lost weight? You're looking great, all that stuff. And he says, can I go back to my city, the city of my ancestors, and can I restore what the enemy has broken? Can we have a breakthrough moment for me and my entire nation? And the king says, yes, but you got to come back. This is only stipulation. Yes, you can go. And you can do this. And so Nehemiah set out on a 1,000-mile journey to get back to Jerusalem to get this started. And he started seeing what they could do. And what is the first thing we could do? And he decided we need to rebuild this wall so that people won't keep coming in and raiding and looting and destroying what we're trying to build. If we rebuild the wall, we can do this. And a wall that had stood destroyed for 140 years, Nehemiah led a group of people, women and men in Jerusalem, to rebuild that wall. And you know how long it took them to rebuild it? 52 days. But good guess. 52 days they were able to rebuild this wall. Let me ask you a question. What could God rebuild in your life? What could God restore? What could you do to break through in your life? What addiction has a hold of you, or sin has a hold of you in your life that is separating you from the fullness of God? If you would decide today that you are brokenhearted over this, that you've had all you can stands and you can't stands no more. What is that thing that if you were so brokenhearted that you began to pray and ask God for forgiveness and ask God to strengthen you, to give you focus, and you said, you know what, I'm going to begin today taking the next steps that I need to take to see it come to fruition in my life. What is that area that you need to break through in? The first step that you're going to need to have is you're going to have a passion for who God has called you to be, a vision for what God has called you to, the relationship with Him that you could have. And if you begin to care with all that you've got, if you make this your priority and your passion, God will let you break through to the others. Today's an exciting day for so many reasons, all the things that we've already heard, plus there's more. Number one, the connection card is really exciting, and I would encourage you all to take it out. I know you don't think it is, but it is. And I would encourage you to take it out for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you are new to Pursuit Church, on the back side of that, there's a little place that says, I would like more information about Starting Point. If you are new to Pursuit Church and you've never attended one of our Starting Point meetings, next Sunday is going to be a great day for you because, number one, you get to hear about the history and the heart of a Pursuit Church and how you can be involved in it, and you get free lunch out of it. So, next Sunday, immediately following our 10:45 worship time at about noon, we will have that Starting Point right out there in the lobby for those who are new to Pursuit Church and want to get better connected and learn how you can do that. Also, on the back side of that card, I would encourage you to circle the box if you are interested in being baptized and you've never been baptized or you don't even know what a baptize is and you would like to ask some questions. We are going to be having some baptisms 1 week from today. We have a few people that are going to be baptized, yeah. And so if you've never been baptized, you would like some more information about it, let us know. We would like to talk to you first and make sure you understand what baptism means. That's kind of our only requirement, is that you follow Jesus and you can articulate to us why it means to be baptized and what it's all about. So if you have any more questions about that, circle it. You can leave that card in the seat or put it in the bucket in the back. And speaking of the bucket in the back, we would encourage you to support Pursuit Church with your tithes, your offerings, your giving, your generosity. If you're here, you can put cash in there. If you're joining with us online or you're here in the room, you can always go to pursuitchurch.life, click on the Give button. But I want to encourage you to do that so that we can continue loving and serving our world around us. We would like to get more and more involved in all of that. And speaking of which, when we started Pursuit Church a little over a year ago now, we had one big goal in mind. Our leadership team, we sat down and we talked about what the next few years would look like. And one of the big goals we had for 2023 was to start a global initiative of some sort. We wanted to be outside of just our walls here, and we wanted to go and love on people all around the world. And I'm excited today to be able to tell you about what we're going to do for this year, next year, hopefully the foreseeable future, and how you can be a part of helping it. You guys want to hear it? Yes. Okay, so beginning, you can go about every 10 seconds on these slides. We are going to be working with a church and a group in Guatemala who are serving, loving, feeding kids in one of the poorest areas of South America, the mountains of Guatemala. And you get the opportunity to be involved in a part of this incredible and special ministry where we get the opportunity to feed kids, to make sure that they get the vitamins they need, they get the dental care and medical care that they need, that they get the clean water that they need. And you have the opportunity to partner and be a part of this. And let me tell you how you can do it. Look, first of all, let me tell you this. I think it's the next slide. Maybe it's a couple more slides. So we're going to be able to provide children access to adequate food, clean water, education, and medicine, which a lot of them currently don't get. Go ahead and hit the next slide. Through an organization called Happy Tummies. Doesn't that sound lovely? Happy Tummies. Go to the next one. You're going to see some of the Happy Tummies that are experiencing this. This organization that started through this church, and they've got some people on site that work with the families there, but they are able to provide so much. $1 per day. You can hang out on this slide for a second. $1 per day provides a healthy meal, vitamins, clean water, clean hands and teeth, medical checkups, tutoring, and a Bible story. How often does that happen? Every day. $1 a day will accomplish all that. Go ahead and hit the next few slides. You can see some of this already being done on the ground in action as we speak. Go ahead and hit the next one. You see them in church worshiping there together. Go ahead and hit the next one. Yeah, eating some of the food, drinking the clean water, or maybe that's milk, I don't know, drinking something there. Eating something, drinking something. Go ahead and hit the next one. Just a reminder, $1 equals all of those things a day. And you have the opportunity to be involved. And let me tell you how you can be involved. Three things. Number one, you can begin praying today for this ministry in Guatemala, for the kids there, and what God is already doing on the ground for them. Number two, you can go to Guatemala on a missions trip at least once a year if you want to while we are involved in this. And there's a missions trip coming up in November of this year, so you can't even say that you don't have enough time. You got plenty of time. And if you would like to go to Guatemala and be a part of hands-on feeding these people, being a part of worshiping with them, serving with them, helping them to build buildings, all of that stuff, November of this year, we're going to be taking a group down to go to do that. Isn't that exciting? I hope that you're excited about it. I would love to see us overwhelm the airlines with how many people want to go be a part of this. More information about that in the coming weeks and months. The second thing that the third thing that you can do to be a part of it, and this is something more practical that everybody can do right from here, is first and foremost, we've set aside some budget money that is going to go straight to this mission in Guatemala. So we're going to be able to provide at least $100, or I think it's maybe even $150 a month straight to the children on the ground there. But second, we're going to be able to send more because starting here in just a few weeks, we are going to have a merchandise and coffee table out in the lobby where we are going to be selling new church merchandise, shirts, hoodies, Alabama hoodies, basically a t-shirt with a hood on it, and long sleeve, short sleeve, all that kind of stuff, coffee mugs, tumblers, stickers. And so this is going to accomplish several things. Number one, you get to rep Pursuit Church out in your community. Yeah, and tell people all about what God is doing here. And number two, you get to support these kids in Guatemala, because if it cost us $11 to make a t-shirt, we're going to sell it to you for $15, and you've just provided 4 days of meals and vitamins and Bible stories for a child. Isn't that awesome? And you get to go and rep that Pursuit Church gear all around town and tell people to come and buy a Pursuit Church shirt so that they can provide $4 worth of meals, 4 days worth of meals. It's going to be awesome. And we're going to have Guatemalan coffee brewed every-ish Sunday out there, and you're going to be able to pay for it. You're still going to be able to get the free coffee if you want it, but if you would like a fresh cup of brewed Guatemalan coffee, you can pay a little bit extra, and every cent of that is going to go straight back to them over there to be able to provide food and all that for the kids of Guatemala. I hope that you're as excited about this as I am. Beginning next week, we're going to start taking pre-orders for what kind of shirts you want out in the lobby, so come prepared to spend thousands. Even though we don't even have that many options yet. But the idea is that every 6 months, we are going to provide new clothes, new merchandise that you can order and do it all over again, to the point where your wardrobe is only going to be Pursuit Church stuff in about 4 years. Okay? This is going to be awesome and amazing. Yeah, I'm so excited about what God is doing here in the lives of the students, Guatemala. We need to keep praying for each other. Thank you for the encouragement there. And I am so excited. You guys have a great rest of your Sunday. Grab a cookie on the way out. We will see you back next week, 9:15 or 10:45. You don't want to miss it. Baptism, starting point, pre-sales for merchandise. It's all happening next week. We'll see you guys back then.